Have you ever stood at the precipice of your own life, sending a whisper out into the vast, silent cosmos, and wondered if anyone was truly listening? Have you offered up your deepest desires, your most fervent hopes, only to hear the echo of your own voice return unanswered? We have been taught to pray on bended knee, to petition a power outside of ourselves, as if we were beggars at the gates of destiny. This book is here to tell you that you have been kneeling at the wrong altar. Prayer is not an act of supplication. It is the sacred art of creation. The real power has never been in the asking, but in the becoming. It is the sublime technology of using the very fabric of your being, your thoughts, your emotions, your unshakable belief to consciously sculpt the formless energy of the universe into tangible physical experience. You are not begging for a miracle. You are the mechanism through which miracles are born. Forget the words you speak, for the cosmos does not hear language. It feels frequency. Reality is a grand vibrational mirror, responding not to what you want, but to who you are in each moment. It is a reflection of your state of being. To change the world you see, you must first change the frequency you broadcast. The outer world is but a lagging shadow of your inner reality. For too long, you may have lived under the illusion of being a victim of circumstance, a ship tossed upon the waves of fate. Let that story crumble to dust, for it was never true. Life does not happen to you. It flows through you and is molded by you. You are the creator, the master architect of your existence. This creative authority is not something you must earn or find. It is your primordial birthright, an innate power sleeping within your soul, waiting only for the kiss of your own awareness to awaken. And the key, the ancient guarded secret to unlocking this power, is deceptively simple, yet profoundly transformative. It is the feeling of the wish fulfilled. To manifest your desire, you do not chase it, you embody it. You cease to think of it and begin to think from it. You clothe yourself in the feeling of its reality so completely that your entire being vibrates with the signature of its existence. This is the act of assuming a new reality, of consciously choosing a state of being and living within it, compelling it to harden into fact. A word by itself is a hollow shell. An emotion alone is a fleeting vapor. A belief without feeling is a dormant seed. But when your intention, your emotion, and your belief merge into a single, unified, indivisible force, they become a command. This is the true prayer. You do not pray with your lips, but with the full, unified symphony of your being. This is not a book of theory. It is a threshold. Step through it, and you will not learn how to ask for a different life. You will remember how to create one. Chapter 1. The Silent Architect. In our human world, there is a truth often forgotten amidst the hustle of adult life. It's the memory of a time when the world was still malleable, when reality seemed to bend to the power of one's will. A child lying in the grass looking up at the clouds doesn't just see masses of water vapor. They see dragons, castles, and kings. To the child, they are real. The sky is not a fixed physical entity, but a canvas for the imagination. It is only in growing up and being taught the rigid laws of the world that this canvas slowly hardens into a static picture. But perhaps the raw perception of a child is closer to the truth than we think. Perhaps the world truly is a field of infinite potential waiting to be given form. The story of Elias, a wood sculptor living in a remote valley, serves as a testament to this. His fame spread across the lands not only for his masterful technique, but for his ability to breathe life into the very grain of the wood. His creations were not mere statues. They were living entities that seemed to breathe and feel. One day, the lord of the region sent Elias a gift that was also a challenge, a block of ancient ebony, dark as night and hard as stone. The Lord commanded, "Create a masterpiece that reflects the power and eternity of my lineage." Elias accepted the block of wood with reverence. He placed it in the center of his workshop, where the scents of pine and beeswax mingled in the air. For days he did nothing but circle it, touch its smooth surface, and try to listen for what the wood wanted to become. But this time he heard nothing, only a heavy silence. The pressure of the Lord's command weighed on his mind. Power, eternity. These words echoed in his head, creating a wall between him and his creative flow. The harder he tried to envision a majestic lion or a proud eagle, the more inert and lifeless the wood became. Despair set in. The fear of failure, the anxiety of disappointing the Lord, began to gnaw at his confidence. His workshop, once a sanctuary of creation, now felt like a prison of stagnation. The ebony log, instead of a field of potential, became a symbol of his own impotence. After weeks of struggling in vain, Elias surrendered. He set down his tools, left his workshop, and walked deep into the forest behind his home. He wasn't trying to find inspiration anymore. He was simply walking his bare feet on the damp earth, feeling the sunlight filter through the canopy, listening to the bird song and the babbling of a nearby stream. He was no longer Elias the sculptor. He simply was a part of the forest, merged with the symphony of life. In that state of complete surrender with his mind, no longer fixated on the outcome, an image flashed within him. It was not a lion or an eagle. It was the image of a tiny seed cracking open its shell to push its way up from the earth, containing within it the promise of a great ancient tree. This was true power, true eternity, found in the cyclical nature of life itself. Elias returned to his workshop, his heart now filled with peace and a quiet joy. He no longer looked at the wood with expectation, but with love and understanding. He picked up his chisel, and his hands moved with a natural grace, as if guided by a greater intelligence. He was no longer sculpting. He was simply removing the excess wood to reveal the form that already existed within. When the work was finished, it surpassed all expectations. The sculpture depicted not an external symbol of power, but the very essence of eternal life, a single exquisite seed sprouting from an open hand. When the Lord saw it, he fell silent. He saw not the arrogance of power, but the humble, enduring strength of creation itself. Elias's story is not a solitary miracle. It is a living demonstration of a profound truth about the nature of reality. Reality is fundamentally a field of potential, not fixed matter. Before anything becomes tangible, from Elias's block of ebony to the circumstances of your life, it exists as an invisible wave of energy. The world is not made of pre-existing things, but is crystallized from an infinite ocean of all possibilities. The ebony log could have become a lion, an eagle, or a seed. All of those potentials existed simultaneously in the energetic field. Perception is the tool that sculpts reality. It is the act of observation, of placing your attention, that causes a potential in the energy field to collapse into a specific event, circumstance, or object. When Elias focused on his fear and pressure, the wood became silent and inert. When he shifted his awareness to a state of peace and connection, the wood's true potential revealed itself. You are not just living in the world, you are calling the world into being with your awareness. This is also seen in the story of Alara, a young woman who lived in a grand castle. She always felt invisible, overshadowed by her beautiful and vivacious sisters. She carried a constant fear of being married off to an old, harsh duke to secure a political alliance. This fear haunted her daily. Everywhere she looked, she saw signs confirming this belief. A whispered conversation between her parents, the duke's family crest, on a letter, a pitiful glance from a servant. Alara's world seemed to be shrinking, confirming her greatest fear. She didn't realize that the world outside was simply a perfect reflection of her world within. Reality is a mirror, not a wall. The external world is not a separate, rigid entity. It is a mirror that faithfully and accurately reflects the inner state of being that you hold. Alara could not change what she saw around her without first changing how she felt inside her. One day, hiding in the castle's ancient library, she overheard the words of a traveling sage. The universe does not respond to your pleas. It responds to your feeling. The words struck a deep chord within her. She realized she had been dedicating all her energy to feeling fear, and the universe had faithfully responded by giving her more reasons to be afraid. From that day on, Elara decided to try something different. Instead of fighting her fear, she began to cultivate a new feeling. Every morning she would go to the royal garden, close her eyes, and she wouldn't pray for a happy marriage. She would simply try to feel it. She felt the warmth of a hand holding hers, the joy of an understanding conversation, the safety of being cherished. She didn't attach these feelings to a specific face or outcome. She just immersed herself in that state of being. Emotion is the language of creation, the truest prayer. The universe responds not to empty words, but to the electromagnetic signature created by your thoughts. The electrical signal and your emotions, the magnetic field. A single negative emotion like Elara's fear has the power to negate 1,000 positive affirmations. Your state of being is the command the energy field listens to. Gradually, a miraculous shift occurred. Elara no longer felt invisible. She walked with a quiet confidence, a light that radiated from within. People began to notice her not for her appearance, but for the peaceful energy she exuded. And then the news of the marriage to the old duke simply faded away like mist. A few months later, a young scholar from a distant land came to visit the castle, a kindred spirit who brought with him the very feeling of warmth and understanding she had been cultivating in the garden. The stories of Elias and Elara illuminate a fundamental law of the universe, a law that every human being is operating by in every moment of their lives. You are always creating, whether consciously or unconsciously. There is no moment when you are not creating. To live unconsciously is to allow old fears and beliefs to automatically sculpt your reality, like Elias in his creative block or Elara in her fear. To live consciously is to reclaim your power to deliberately choose your thoughts and feelings and thus create the life you truly desire. You are the silent architect of your world. The question, therefore, is not, are you creating your reality, but rather, from what state of being are you creating it? Practice touching a new state of being. This practice is not about forced positive thinking. Its purpose is to help you embody the feeling of your desired future right here in the present moment. Choose a feeling. Instead of thinking about a specific goal, the first step is to choose the core feeling that goal would give you. It could be freedom, abundance, peace, or unconditional love. For example, you might choose the word freedom. Find a quiet space, set aside 5 to 10 minutes where you won't be disturbed. You can sit or lie down comfortably, close your eyes, and take a few deep breaths to relax your body. Evoke and embody. Next, ask yourself, what does freedom feel like in this body? The key is not to analyze with your mind, but to let your body answer. It might be a feeling of expansion in your chest, a lightness in your shoulders, or a spontaneous smile. You can recall a time in your past when you felt truly free and allow that sensation to wash over your entire body. Live in the feeling. The goal is not just to observe the feeling, but to become it. Let every cell in your body vibrate with the frequency of freedom. Breathe it in. Feel it in your heartbeat. Sustain this state effortlessly. Simply be in it. Let go and trust. When you finish the exercise, open your eyes and carry that feeling with you into your day. You don't need to worry about how the result will come. Your job is to maintain the new state of being. The universe's job is to arrange the events, people, and opportunities to mirror that state back to you. As you do this daily, you send a new signal out into the field of potential. And that field, like a faithful mirror, has no choice but to reflect the new image you are embodying. Chapter 2. The Gardener of Reality. In the most ancient scriptures, it is not said that a person has a soul, but that a person is a soul having a human experience. This subtle distinction holds a great truth that has been forgotten over time. We have grown accustomed to identifying with our names, our bodies and our life stories, forgetting our true nature, a stream of pure consciousness, the source and cause of all that is experienced. The story of Alastair, a gifted painter in a historic city, profoundly illustrates this truth. Alastair was famous for his somber landscapes. His brushwork was masterful, his grasp of light and shadow unparalleled, yet all his works emanated a cold melancholy. This was because years ago he had lost his beloved wife, and that grief had become the lens through which he viewed the entire world. His paintings were not just art, they were the faithful reflections of a broken heart. One day, the Duchess of the region, a vibrant and joyful woman, commissioned Alastair with a seemingly simple task: to paint her royal garden, a place brimming with sunlight, fragrant flowers, and the songs of birds. She wanted him to capture its joy and vitality. Alastair accepted, setting up his easel amidst the brilliant garden. But a strange thing happened. Though his eyes saw crimson roses, violet irises, and golden sunlight, his hands mixed palettes of gray and dreary tones. On his canvas, the garden appeared with long, distorted shadows, flowers that seemed to be wilting, and a sky that threatened a storm. He strained to paint the vibrancy before him, but every effort was in vain. The mind is a projector, not a camera. It does not simply record a pre-existing world. Instead, it projects onto the screen of life whatever film it is fed by way of its assumptions, beliefs, and dominant emotional states. Alastair didn't see the world as it was. He saw the world as he was. The radiant garden could not penetrate the filter of his grief. After many days of failure, the Duchess visited him. She looked at the bleak painting, then at Alastair, and said gently, "Sir, perhaps you have been trying to paint with your eyes. For once, try sitting here and simply feeling the garden with your heart." Spurred by desperation, Alastair listened. He put away his brushes, sat down on the grass, and closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to truly feel. He felt the warmth of the sun on his skin, heard the buzz of a honeybee, and inhaled the sweet fragrance of jasmine. He was no longer analyzing shapes or colors. He simply merged with the sensation of life flowing around him. Slowly, a warm peace, something he had not felt for a very long time, began to seep into his heart. This was the moment of transformation. Creative power lies in coherence, not in positive thinking. A conflicted mind emits chaotic signals. When Alastair tried to think about joy while feeling grief, he created a disjointed reality on the canvas. It was only when his mind thought and his heart feeling aligned, when he allowed himself to truly feel the garden's joy, that they created a single laser-like signal capable of creating with clarity. When Alastair opened his eyes and picked up his brush again, something magical happened. His hands moved with a newfound fluidity. The colors he mixed were vibrant and alive. He wasn't just painting the forms of the flowers, he was painting their very soul. The final painting was a masterpiece of light and life, capturing not only the beauty of the garden, but also the budding healing in the artist's own soul. Consciousness is the only reality, the root cause of all experience. Alastair was not a body that had consciousness. He was consciousness using a body to experience and express. The external world, the garden, did not exist independently. It was the objectification or reflection of the observer's own consciousness. When his consciousness shifted, its reflection on the canvas shifted with it. The story of Marcus, a reclusive sage, illuminates another facet of this law. Marcus had been tormented by a chronic illness for years. His every day was a vicious cycle of observing his symptoms, worrying about them, and feeling hopeless. His entire sense of self was framed by the words, "a sick person." He had tried countless remedies and repeated affirmations of health, but his condition never improved. This was because while his mouth said, "I am healthy," his deepest assumption and dominant feeling was, "I am sick." He was constantly digging up the seed of health with his doubt and daily inspection of symptoms. One day, while studying an ancient text, he read a line, "You are not the clouds that pass by, You are the sky that contains them. This sentence awakened him. He realized he had been identifying with the clouds of sick thoughts and feelings, forgetting that his true nature was the sky, the silent, aware space behind them. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. Reclaiming your true power begins when you disidentify from the endless stream of thoughts and emotions. By becoming that space of awareness, you can consciously choose where to place your focus. Marcus began a new practice. Each day, instead of fighting the pain, he would sit quietly and simply observe it. He didn't call it my pain. He just recognized it as a sensation arising, existing, and passing away within his field of awareness. He did the same with his worried thoughts. He didn't chase them away. He just watched them come and go like clouds across the sky. Gradually, he created a space between him and the illness. Then he began to practice as a gardener. Be a master gardener of your reality. Each day, Marcus planted a simple seed of intention into the garden of his mind, wholeness. He didn't plant it with effort. He just gently placed it there. Then he watered it by taking a few minutes to evoke the feeling of wholeness, of a body functioning perfectly, of energy flowing unimpeded. And the most crucial part, he trusted the invisible process of growth. He no longer dug up the seed by checking his symptoms every hour. When an unpleasant sensation or a worried thought arose, he would simply recognize it, a cloud, and gently return his attention to the feeling of wholeness, or simply to his breath. This persistence in trusting the unseen is the deciding factor in the formation of the seen. Months passed. The change was not instantaneous, but slow, almost imperceptible. The symptoms began to lessen. His energy gradually returned. Marcus hadn't cured a disease. He had withdrawn his attention and belief from the reality of sickness and invested it in the reality of wholeness. His body, as a faithful reflection of his consciousness, had no choice but to follow. Practice the inner garden. This practice helps you shift from passively reacting to reality to actively creating it by working with consciousness where everything originates. Become the sky. Find a quiet place. Close your eyes and imagine that you are not your body, but the infinite space of awareness in which the body exists. Become aware of all the sensations in your body, all the sounds around you, all the thoughts drifting through your mind. Don't cling to or judge them. Observe them as clouds passing through the vast sky that is you. Practice this for a few minutes until you feel a sense of stillness and separation. Weed with awareness. In this state of stillness, identify a core belief or negative emotional state you wish to change, e.g., I'm not good enough. I am always anxious. Don't fight it. Simply bring it into the light of your awareness. See it as a cloud or a weed in your garden. When observed without judgment, its energy begins to dissolve. Plant a new seed. Now choose a seed, a clear intention, a quality you wish to cultivate. Instead of I want success, choose a seed like abundance or confidence. Hold this intention gently in your mind. Water with feeling. Ask yourself, if I already were this abundance, how would I feel right now? Let your body answer. Perhaps it's a feeling of relaxation in your shoulders, a warmth in your heart, a deep and fulfilling breath. Immerse yourself in this emotion. This is the act of watering your seed with the energy of coherence. Trust the harvest. After the practice, go about your day with the trust that the seed has been planted. Your work is done. Do not constantly check to see if it has sprouted. Whenever doubt a weed arises, simply recognize it and gently return to the feeling of the seed you planted. Trust the invisible process. The inner garden will soon blossom into the garden of your outer reality. Chapter 3. The Art of Assumption. In ancient temples and silent monasteries, people were taught how to pray. But over the centuries, the true meaning of this sacred act seems to have faded. People began to believe that prayer was the act of begging from an external power, a plea sent from a person in need to an almighty deity. They did not realize that the most powerful prayer is not a petition, but a silent declaration. The story of Gideon, a silk merchant, exposes this profound difference. Once one of the wealthiest men in the city, Gideon lost everything after his caravans were destroyed by storms and pirates. He secluded himself in his empty mansion, where the silence was now heavier than the storerooms once filled with goods. Every night he knelt and prayed with all his heart. His prayers were filled with desperation. "Please save me," he implored. "Please return my wealth to me. Please do not abandon me." But the more he pleaded, the worse his reality became. Creditors knocked on his door with increasing frequency, and his last remaining assets had to be sold. Gideon couldn't understand. Why were his sincere prayers going unanswered? "You receive the frequency you broadcast." Gideon didn't realize he was praying from an extreme state of lack. Every plea he made was a powerful affirmation of his dire situation. He was broadcasting the frequency of loss, of desperation, of a beggar, and the universe, being a perfect mirror, could do nothing but reflect that very lack back to him. One afternoon, while wandering aimlessly, Gideon stumbled into an old marketplace and saw a blind old woman sitting silently by a dry fountain. She wasn't begging or speaking, just sitting with a serene smile. Curious, Gideon approached and told her of his plight. After listening, the old woman turned to him, her sightless eyes seeming to pierce his very soul, and said, "Young man, your prayers have been answered perfectly. You prayed from emptiness, and you have received more emptiness. Do not pray for rain. Learn to feel the cool water on your skin before the clouds have even gathered." Her words struck Gideon like a bolt of lightning. He returned to his mansion, but this time he did not kneel. He sat down in the old armchair in his dusty study, closed his eyes, and tried something entirely different. Prayer is an act of being, not an act of asking. Gideon no longer begged for wealth. Instead, he assumed he was already wealthy. He practiced the art of living in the end. He imagined himself walking through a warehouse brimming with silk, hearing the chatter and laughter of his workers, smelling the distinct fragrance of the goods. He felt the weight of gold coins in his hand, felt the relief and security spreading through his body. Reverse the law of cause and effect. Feeling first, evidence later. This is spiritual alchemy. Gideon did not wait for the external world to change to feel secure. He dared to feel secure first, right in the midst of his destitution, thereby compelling the outer world to conform. Every day he spent time living in this assumed state, conditioning his entire body with the feeling of the wish already fulfilled. A few weeks later, a stranger came to see him. It was a merchant to whom Gideon had loaned a large sum many years ago, and who he thought had been lost at sea. This merchant had prospered in a distant land and had now returned to pay Gideon back in full with interest, a sum large enough for him to start all over again. Gideon hadn't attracted money. He had become the frequency of abundance, and money, along with opportunity, was simply drawn to that frequency. The story of Isabella, a librarian, shows how this law operates in the realm of emotion. Isabella was an intelligent gentlewoman, but she was painfully shy and felt perpetually lonely. She yearned for a kindred spirit, a soul connection, but felt like an invisible ghost in her own life. She wished, hoped, and prayed for a friend, but her prayers sprang from a deep sense of loneliness. That yearning, by its very nature, was an affirmation of absence. One day, while rearranging old books, she read a line of poetry: "The sun does not seek the flowers. The sun simply shines and the flowers turn towards it." The verse awakened her. She realized her mistake. She had been searching for connection outside of herself, while her own inner world was a vacant space. Embody the answer to end the search. Isabella stopped searching. Instead, she began to become the very connection she craved. She started playing the most beautiful music just for herself, taking walks in the park at sunset by herself, and truly enjoying her own company. She shifted from a state of wanting friendship to a state of being a wonderful friend. She was no longer broadcasting the frequency of loneliness, but the frequency of contentment and peace. Your body must believe the future has already happened. As Isabella immersed herself in her own joy, her entire body vibrated with the feeling of being loved and cherished. This energy field does not distinguish between an imagined experience and a real one. It simply responds to the feeling. And then the inevitable happened. Her new energy had a magnetic quality. People began to notice the gentle light that radiated from her. Another musician who had worked in the same building for months, without ever noticing her, was one day drawn to the beautiful melody she was playing for herself. He approached, a conversation began, and a connection blossomed naturally and effortlessly. She didn't find friendship. She embodied it, and friendship found her. The saying, "What you seek is also seeking you," is not because it hears your words, but because it recognizes itself in your energy. Practice living in the end. This practice is the core of the art of assumption. It is not a mere visualization exercise, but an emotional rehearsal for a reality already fulfilled. Define the end. Clearly define what you desire. Then ask yourself, if this were already true, what would I do, see, or hear immediately after that would imply it is finished? Do not imagine the act of receiving the wish, but a short scene that takes place afterward. For example, not the scene of getting the job, but the scene of you on the phone with a friend saying, "I got that amazing job." Enter the creative state. Find a state of deep relaxation similar to the drowsy, dreamlike state just before sleep. This is the state where the conscious, critical mind has quieted, allowing you direct access to the subconscious. Construct and loop the scene. Now begin playing the short film you created in step 1 in your mind's eye. See it through your own eyes, first person. Make it vivid, the colors, the sounds, the feeling of touch. Loop this short scene over and over again, each time adding more sensory detail and feeling. Feel its truth. This is the most crucial step. As you loop the scene, allow yourself to feel all the emotions that come with the wish being fulfilled. It could be relief, joy, gratitude, or pride. Let that emotion swell up and saturate your entire being. Truly believe that the scene you are experiencing is real. Sleep in the assumption. Ideally perform this exercise right before bed and fall asleep while still feeling the satisfaction of the wish fulfilled. The last state you occupy before sleep makes the deepest impression on the subconscious. If practicing during the day, end by holding that feeling and move into your day with the quiet confidence that it is done. Do not look for outer signs. You are the sign. Chapter 4, The Compass of Emotion. In the grand dance of creation, thoughts may be the footsteps, but emotion is the music. We often believe that the world is built of action and matter, not realizing that the foundation of it all is an invisible symphony of frequencies. Every emotional state you carry within you is not just a private psychological experience. It is a note, a chord being broadcast into the vast expanse of existence. This is the mother tongue of the universe, and everything is listening. The story of Kael, a master carpet weaver, is a powerful testament to this truth. Kael's technique was flawless, the patterns he created astonishingly complex and precise. Yet no one wanted to buy his carpets. They were coldly beautiful, rigid, and lacked the breath of life. This was because Kael's heart was filled with bitterness. He believed the position of guildmaster, which he felt he deserved, had been stolen by a less talented rival. That resentment became the invisible ink that dyed every thread he touched. One day, a wealthy, noble family commissioned him to weave a wedding carpet, a piece that must embody harmony and eternal love. Kael accepted, hoping this was his chance to prove his talent. He tried to weave images of doves and intertwined hearts, but no matter how hard he tried, his resentment seeped into every knot. The doves looked as if they were fighting, the hearts were distorted, and the entire carpet exuded a sense of tension instead of harmony. The noble family rejected the piece, which only reinforced Kael's belief that the world was deeply unfair. You are not being punished, you are being matched. The universe did not judge Kael's resentment as good or bad. It was simply a mirror faithfully reflecting the frequency he was broadcasting. He broadcasted conflict and he received rejection. He broadcasted injustice and he received more evidence of injustice. His emotion was not a sin, it was a compass pointing directly to the reality he was creating. In his despair, Kael smashed his loom. As he sat amidst the wreckage, an old dyer, a woman famous for her magically vibrant colors, came to him. She did not console him, she simply looked at the scattered threads and said, "You cannot weave love with threads of resentment. You are trying to sing a love song with the voice of a battle. Can you hear the music you, yourself, are creating?" The old woman's words awakened Kael. For the first time, he realized his emotions were not a passive reaction to the world. They were an active creative force. Be the architect of your emotions, not the victim of your circumstances. Kael began a new practice. Before he started his work, he no longer thought of his rival or his perceived injustices. Instead, he sat in silence and sought a different feeling to cultivate. He began with the simplest one: gratitude. He was grateful for his skillful hands, for the soft feel of the wool, for the brilliant colors of the dyes. He wove small tapestries not to sell, but simply to enjoy the pure pleasure of creation. He was choosing his emotional state with intention, not by reaction. Power lies in coherence, not in superficial positivity. The gratitude and creative joy produced a coherent, orderly energy field. The chaotic frequency of resentment was replaced by a harmonious one. Gradually, his new works began to change. They became soft, warm, and vibrant. People could feel the joy woven into them. Finally, he wove a new wedding carpet not out of obligation, but because his heart was now filled with the very emotion he wished to express. That carpet became the masterpiece of his life. The story of Lyra, the heir to a barren land, illuminates this law from another angle. When her father died, Lyra faced a grim reality: cracked, dry fields, impoverished villagers, and an empty treasury. Every external circumstance gave her a valid reason to feel fear and despair. Had she been a victim of her circumstances, she would have drowned in those emotions, and the frequency of despair would have only created more drought and poverty. But Lyra remembered her father's words: "Don't look at the land, my daughter, look at the seed, and become the rain before it arrives." She understood that she could not wait for reality to change to feel hopeful. She had to become hope first. Every morning before meeting with her advisors and their bleak reports, Lyra would walk the barren fields. But instead of seeing death, she deliberately chose a different feeling. She closed her eyes and felt gratitude for the land as if it were already bountiful. She imagined and felt the joy of a rich harvest, heard the laughter of a well-fed populace. She had become an architect of emotion. The creative sequence is immutable. Vibration precedes, manifestation follows. Lyra's calm, confident, and hopeful state broadcasted an incredibly coherent signal. This energy cleared her mind, helping her see solutions that others had overlooked. She found an old irrigation system on a forgotten map. Her unwavering faith inspired the villagers, and they worked together with a renewed spirit. Then, as if by a miracle, unseasonal rains began to fall. The land slowly came back to life. Lyra didn't chase a better reality. She broadcasted its frequency and let it come to her. Practice becoming the architect of emotion. This practice helps you reclaim the power to choose your emotional state deliberately instead of passively reacting to external events. Read the compass. Whenever you feel a negative emotion, anxiety, sadness, anger, pause for a moment. Don't judge it or try to suppress it. Simply acknowledge it objectively. My emotional compass is pointing toward anxiety. This recognition helps you separate from the emotion instead of being consumed by it. Choose a destination. Now consciously decide how you want to feel, not based on your current circumstances, but on the reality you wish to create. Choose one word for your destination. For example, my destination is peace. Generate the new frequency. The fastest way to change your frequency is through gratitude. Find 3 specific things, no matter how small, that you genuinely feel grateful for in this exact moment. It could be the warmth of your teacup, the sunlight through the window, or your own breath. Don't just think about them. Truly feel the gratitude rising from your heart. Broadcast the signal. Once you can feel the gratitude, hold that state for a few minutes. Imagine the feeling as a warm light radiating from your chest, expanding out to fill the space around you. This is you actively broadcasting a new signal, a new frequency into the energy field. Trust the sequence. After you finish, continue with your day, trusting that you have initiated a new creative cycle. You have sent out the vibration. The universe's job is to arrange the corresponding manifestation. You don't need to worry about the how. You only need to maintain your new frequency. Chapter 5. The Stage of the Mind. In the grand theater of life, every person is constantly rehearsing for a role. The question is not if you are rehearsing, but which script you are rehearsing. Most of humanity unconsciously spends the majority of their time and energy rehearsing the plays of anxiety, the tragedies of failure, and the habits of lack. They do not realize that the mind is a sacred stage, where any play that is practiced with faith and consistency will inevitably be performed on the stage of the physical world. The story of Cassian, a young scholar, reveals the double-edged power of this law. Cassian possessed a brilliant mind and ideas that could change a kingdom, yet he suffered from a paralyzing stage fright. Whenever he had to stand before a crowd, no matter how small, his voice would tremble, his mind would go blank, and his eloquent words would vanish like smoke. Soon he was scheduled to present his ideas before the Lord's council, an opportunity that could define his entire destiny. In the days leading up to the presentation, Cassian did exactly what most people do. He rehearsed for disaster. He sat alone in his room, but in his mind he was already on the stage of failure. He saw himself stammering, saw the important faces on the council frowning, and heard the whispered jeers. He felt the hot flush of shame spread through his body. You are always rehearsing some reality. Cassian was using his creative power to reinforce the very reality he dreaded. His body and nervous system could not distinguish between a vividly imagined humiliation and a real one. To them, the catastrophe had already happened dozens of times. His mentor, a retired statesman, found him in this state of panic. He didn't tell Cassian to be brave. Instead, he placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "You are not afraid of the stage, Cassian. You are afraid of the script you have written for yourself on that stage. Stop rehearsing for disaster and start rehearsing for the ovation. Don't just think about it. Live in it." Mental rehearsal is not daydreaming. It is embodying it in advance. Cassian understood. He went to an empty lecture hall and closed the doors. He didn't just recite his speech. He began to perform. He imagined the hall filled with attentive faces. He saw the Lord's appreciative nod. He heard his own voice, no longer trembling but firm, confident, and inspiring. He felt the wave of energy and connection with the audience. Most importantly, he rehearsed the final scene, the thunderous applause and the feeling of pride and relief swelling in his chest. He tasted and wore that future. The ultimate purpose of rehearsal is to change your identity, not to get something. Day after day, Cassian repeated this rehearsal. Gradually, a profound change took place. He was no longer Cassian the timid scholar. He was reprogramming himself to become Cassian the persuasive orator. He wasn't rehearsing to get applause. He was rehearsing because receiving applause was the nature of the new man he was becoming. When the great day arrived, Cassian stepped up to the podium. There was no hesitation. His body simply followed the script it had practiced to perfection. His speech flowed flawlessly. The outer world had no choice but to mirror the new identity he had forged from within. The story of Finian, an old stonemason, explores the depth of this law through the lens of persistence. Finian held within him the vision of a final masterpiece, a statue that would encapsulate his entire life and wisdom. But his body was old and weak. His hands trembled, and he no longer had the strength to conquer the hard marble blocks. At first he tried to work through force, but each failure only reinforced the identity of a frail old man. His isolated efforts were weak signals, easily drowned out by his own doubt. Consistency creates magnetic momentum. Finian realized he could not win by force. He began a different practice. Every night before falling asleep, he lay in his bed and began his rehearsal. He didn't just think about being strong. He felt it. He felt the handle of the hammer firm in a hand that no longer trembled. He felt the muscles in his back working with supple, painless ease. He heard the clean, ringing sound of the chisel as it met the stone perfectly. He felt the deep joy as the statue's form began to emerge. He did not ask for strength. He merged with the feeling of strength. Night after night, he persisted in his rehearsal. This deliberate repetition amplified his signal, creating a powerful magnetic pull. It was drawing the potential of a healthy Finian from the unseen world into the seen. You don't create reality by force, but by fusion. Gradually, his body began to change to match the new inner blueprint. His hands grew steadier. His strength slowly returned. He began to work a little each day. Months later, Finian stood before his finished masterpiece. The statue was not the result of a single miracle, but the culmination of hundreds of silent rehearsals where he had become a living bridge between his vision and its physical expression. The universe did not hear his pleas. It heard his practice of becoming. Practice tomorrow's script. This is a method for consciously writing and rehearsing the script for the reality you desire, turning your mind into a stage for conscious creation. Write the script. Think of something you desire, then create a short scene just 5 to 10 seconds long that takes place after your wish has been fulfilled. This scene must imply that it is already done. For example, instead of the scene of receiving good news in a letter, write the script for the scene where you are hugging a loved one and saying, "We did it." Prepare the stage. Find a quiet space and time, ideally right before you fall asleep. Relax your body, breathe deeply, and allow your mind to grow quiet. Begin the rehearsal step onto the stage of your mind. Live inside the short scene you created, seeing it through your own eyes, first person. Engage all your senses. What do you see? What sounds do you hear? What do you feel on your skin? What do you smell? The more sensory details, the more real the script becomes to your brain. Embody the character while looping the scene. Focus entirely on the feeling of the character. Do you feel relief, joy, pride, or gratitude? Let that emotion swell up and saturate every cell. This is not about watching a movie, it's about becoming the lead actor. This is where your identity begins to shift. The curtain call. After rehearsing for a few minutes, end by holding on to the deep feeling of satisfaction and gratitude, as if you've just given a brilliant performance. Carry that feeling of "it is done" with you into sleep. Trust that you have not just sent out a wish, you have sent out a finished performance. And the universe always gives an ovation for a role that is practiced with all one's heart. Chapter 6. The Gestation of Reality. In the art of creation, there is a stage where even the most steadfast practitioners often stumble. It is the gap, the silent interval, that stretches between planting a seed of intention and seeing it sprout in the physical world. Human beings, with their impatient nature, often interpret this gap as a failure, a sign that their prayers have gone unanswered. They do not realize that this is one of the most sacred and necessary phases of creation. The story of Reese, a young viticulturist, illustrates this lesson profoundly. Reese was given a rare vine cutting by a master, a legendary varietal said to produce the finest wine in the world. He planted the cutting with great reverence and a burning hope. He had rehearsed in his mind the image of a vineyard laden with fruit, feeling the pride of raising a glass of his own wine. But then the gap began. Weeks, then months went by, and the vine cutting seemed not to grow at all. It was just a bare stick in the ground. Meanwhile, the other common vines in the region were already budding and sprouting. Anxiety began to creep into Reese's mind. Is it dead? Did I do something wrong? He became obsessed. Every day he went out to measure the stick's height, check the soil's moisture, and even gently dug around the base to see if the roots were growing. The gap between desire and manifestation is a sacred space, not a refusal. Reese didn't know that with his anxiety he was disturbing the most critical gestation period. In the silence above ground, a phenomenal work was taking place. Below, the vine's root system was driving deep, seeking water and nutrients to prepare for an explosive growth later on. His anxiety was like that of an expectant mother constantly asking the doctor, "Is the baby born yet?" disrupting the natural and necessary process of development. One day, the master visited. Seeing the worry on Reese's face and the disturbed soil around the vine, he shook his head and said, "You are trying to force a flower to bloom. You don't understand that in this silence the strongest roots are being formed. Your job is not to force but to trust. Water it with peace, not with impatience." Mastering time lies in the paradox of certainty with detachment. Reese suddenly understood. He had to know, with unwavering faith, that this vine would produce a legendary wine while at the same time completely letting go of his attachment to when and how it would grow. Certainty is calm and unhurried. Neediness is desperate and always pushes the goal further away. From that day on, Reese changed his attitude. He still cared for the vine, but with a quiet trust. He spent time tending his other plants, lived his life, and held within him the feeling of satisfaction of a successful vineyard owner. He bridged the time gap by persistently living in the emotional state of the final result. The following spring, as if in response to his trust, the vine exploded with life surging upward with a strength that quickly surpassed all the other vines. The period of silence was not a delay. It was preparation. The story of Elena, a scholar, illustrates the art of letting go of the how. Elena had spent years trying to recover a lost mathematical theorem by an ancient sage. She believed the only way was to decipher hundreds of damaged parchments, a nearly impossible task. Let go of obsessing over the path. Elena was fixated on the single path her conscious mind could see. She worked day and night, becoming exhausted and frustrated. The harder she tried, the more the theorem seemed to elude her. Her mind was so focused on one single door that she didn't realize the universe has infinite other pathways. Finally, in her exhaustion, she surrendered. She sat down, closed her eyes, and declared with certainty, "The knowledge of this theorem is already mine. It exists within my consciousness." Then she completely let go. She no longer touched the parchments. She decided to take a walk, visiting the Architects Guild, to look at blueprints just for a change of scenery. She had no agenda. She had maintained the state of arrival, possessing the knowledge, but had completely released the path, the how. At the guild, while admiring the geometric patterns on the floor, a thought struck her like lightning. The pattern was not merely decorative, it was a geometric proof. She suddenly realized the ancient sage had also been an architect, and he had hidden his theorem not in text, but in the very structure of a public building. The universe had led her to the answer through the most unexpected and elegant path, but only after she stopped trying to control the route. The quantum field doesn't operate on a calendar, it operates on vibrational alignment. For the field, there is no past or future, only now. Manifestation occurs at the moment a person's inner vibration and the vibration of their desire perfectly match. The perfect moment is not a specific date on a calendar, but a state of being. When Elena became the person who possessed the knowledge and peace, that knowledge found her practice. Anchoring in knowing. This practice is designed to help you navigate the sacred gap with peace and trust instead of anxiety and doubt. Identify your emotional anchor. After your mental rehearsal of living in the end, identify the core feeling of the wish fulfilled. Is it relief, peace, joy, or freedom? Choose one feeling. This is your anchor. Recognize the test of the gap. As you go about your daily life, the gap will test you. Your mind will start asking, where is it? Why hasn't it happened yet? Impatience, doubt, and anxiety will surface. The pivot technique. When you recognize these feelings, do not fight them. Acknowledge them. My mind is doubting. Then consciously pivot. Take a deep breath and immediately call up the feeling of the anchor you identified in step 1. Remember and regenerate that feeling of relief or peace in your body, a declaration of surrender. Gently remind yourself, my job is to feel the destination. The universe's job is to arrange the journey. In this way, you are actively entrusting the how and the when to a greater intelligence, freeing yourself from the burden of having to control everything. Live in peaceful expectancy. Continue your life with a quiet certainty like a farmer who has planted his seeds and knows the harvest will come, so he waits in peace. This state of peaceful expectation is the most powerful frequency, helping to bridge the time gap and allowing the manifestation to occur at the most perfect moment, not according to a human calendar, but according to universal alignment. Chapter 7. Becoming a living prayer. In the hurried flow of life, people often lose their connection to the rhythm of the universe. They live in a world filled with the static of conflicting thoughts, chaotic emotions, and wavering intentions. Amidst this turmoil, ancient rituals are not superstitious acts, but sacred anchors. They are deliberate moments where an individual can pause, recalibrate their energy, and unify mind, heart, and spirit into a harmonious and powerful symphony. The story of Finn, a shipwright, demonstrates this. Finn was a practical man who believed only in good wood, a heavy hammer, and precise blueprints. He scoffed at sailors who performed small rituals, touching a lucky charm or whispering a prayer to the sea, viewing them as meaningless acts. He was currently building the most important ship of his career, a royal vessel for a great expedition. Despite Finn's finest materials and flawless technique, the project was plagued by setbacks. Tools would break for no reason, precious timbers would inexplicably crack, and a sense of discord permeated the shipyard. The more he relied on logic and physical effort, the more chaotic things became. Finn didn't realize that his own skeptical and frustrated energy was creating a disjointed energy field that affected the entire construction. At a loss, he sought out an old sea captain, a man who had sailed every ocean. The captain didn't speak of shipbuilding techniques. He spoke of the ship's soul. You are building a shell, not a ship. A ship needs a heart. The sailors' rituals are not to beg from the sea. They are to unify their hearts with the heart of the ship so that they and the vessel breathe with the same rhythm. The captain suggested Finn try a simple ritual. Though skeptical, Finn was desperate enough to agree. Every morning before starting his work, he would go inside the half-finished hull holding his blueprints. He would close his eyes. The key to quantum prayer is the combination of clear intention and elevated emotion. Finn looked at the blueprints that was his clear intention. Then he deliberately evoked a powerful feeling of immense pride and deep gratitude, as if the ship had already completed its first glorious voyage. That was the elevated emotion. The intention from his mind directed the energy, while the emotion from his heart provided the magnetic power to draw it forth. Gratitude is the catalyst, especially gratitude for what has not yet taken form. By giving thanks for a successful journey that had not yet happened, Finn sent the most powerful message of certainty. He wasn't giving thanks for what he had, but because the unseen was already on its way to becoming seen. The atmosphere in the shipyard changed almost immediately. The work began to flow smoothly. The strange mishaps ceased. Finn realized that ritual wasn't meant to change the outer world. It was meant to change the Creator. And when the Creator changes, his creation changes with him. The story of Alara, an herbalist, shows how ritual transforms a practitioner into a living prayer. Alara had profound knowledge of plants, but her remedies were sometimes effective, sometimes not. Deep down, she lacked the confidence, the certain knowing of a true healer. When a strange fever swept through the village, Alara's fear of failure peaked. This fear created a chaotic frequency, diminishing the efficacy of the very herbs she prepared. She was practicing the trade of healing, but she had not yet become a healer. In her despair, she remembered her grandmother. Her grandmother never simply mixed herbs together. Every remedy she made was a ritual. Alara decided to follow her example. As she ground the herbs in her mortar, the action she held a clear intention for the health and wholeness of the sick villager, the mind. More importantly, she evoked a feeling of deep love and compassion, along with gratitude for the healing power of Mother Earth. The heart. Ritual helps you shift from practicing prayer to becoming a living prayer. Preparing the medicine was no longer a mechanical task. It became a sacred rite. By putting the practice into motion, she engraved the frequency of healing into her own cells and into the remedy itself. The vials she gave out no longer contained just herbs. They contained a coherent frequency of love and wellness. Her remedies began to work with astonishing effectiveness. The fever in the village slowly receded. Alara understood that the purpose of ritual is to unify, not to control. She wasn't forcing the herbs to work. Instead, she had aligned her own frequency to match the healing frequency inherent in nature. She didn't seek a miracle. She became the frequency of one, and the miracle found her. Practice the morning and evening unification ritual. This ritual is designed to turn each day into a deliberate creative act, helping you constantly maintain the state of a living prayer. Part 1. The morning ritual, sowing the seeds of energy, sacred space. Immediately upon waking, before you are pulled into the concerns of the day, take 5 minutes. You might light a candle, burn some incense, or simply sit in silence. Set the intention mind. Define a single clear intention for the day or for a larger goal. Write it down or speak it aloud. For example, today I am the embodiment of peace and creativity. Amplify with emotion heart. Close your eyes and take a few minutes to feel that intention as already true. What does that peace feel like in your body? How does that creative flow feel? Evoke a deep sense of gratitude, thanking the universe, because this day has already unfolded perfectly according to your intention. Part 2. The evening ritual, harvest and gratitude review in peace. Before sleep, take a few minutes to review your day. Do not judge. Look for even one tiny piece of evidence, a moment, a conversation, or a thought that reflected the intention you set in the morning. Seal with gratitude. Focus on that evidence and feel sincere gratitude. Give thanks also for the things you have not yet seen, knowing that unseen forces are working for your highest good. This act affirms your faith and seals the day's energy with a coherent frequency. Rest in completion, fall asleep with the feeling that you are the prayer. You are no longer one who asks, but one who creates, a co-creator with the universe. By practicing this ritual daily, you are no longer living by chance. You are living as an artist, and each day is a deliberate brushstroke on the magnificent canvas of your life. Chapter 8. The Perfect Mirror. On the journey of consciousness, there is a final threshold. When a person steps through it all, techniques, all practices, all rituals dissolve into their very being. They no longer practice prayer, they are a living prayer. Every breath is an affirmation, every footstep is a command. The outward search ends naturally because they have realized they are the source of everything they have ever sought. The story of Queen Seraphina, who reigned over a peaceful and prosperous empire, is the image of one who has crossed this threshold. Kings and emissaries from neighboring lands, places mired in conflict and lack, often came to learn her secret. They expected to see complex military strategies, cunning political maneuvers, or strict laws, but they saw nothing of the sort. Queen Seraphina did not seem to do much at all. She spent most of her time walking in the royal gardens or reading in the library. She listened to her council far more than she commanded them. A young prince from a struggling kingdom, after weeks of fruitless observation, could not help but ask, "Your Majesty, what techniques do you use to create this prosperity? How do you command reality to obey?" The queen smiled and led the prince to a lake in her garden, its surface as still as a mirror. She said, "Years ago, I too tried to flatten the water by shouting at the ripples. I tried to change the mirror. Then I learned that the only way to have a perfect reflection is to become perfectly still myself." She looked into the prince's eyes and continued, "I do not command this empire to be peaceful. I simply am peace. I do not force my people to be abundant. I have chosen to be abundance in every moment. I do not try to create harmony. I have become the embodiment of harmony, and this empire, as my faithful mirror, has no choice but to reflect that." The master no longer tries to change the mirror, the outer world. Instead, they focus only on perfecting the image they wish to reflect their inner state. They know with certainty that life does not happen to them, it happens through them. The prince suddenly understood. Queen Seraphina was not doing anything to rule. Her very being was her rule. Every decision, every word was not a technique to achieve a result, but a natural expression of the inner state she had mastered. Every moment is a fundamental choice. Are you cause or effect? To live as a prayer is to continually choose to return to the role of cause of your reality. Queen Seraphina knew that the outer world was merely the inevitable effect of the inner state she chose to maintain. Many years after his story became known, the sculptor Elias also reached this state. His workshop became a place of pilgrimage for young artisans. They came not just to learn his technique, but to try and grasp his magic. A talented but constantly frustrated young craftsman asked him, "Master, I have followed all the teachings. I visualize, I feel, I perform the rituals, but my work still lacks a soul. What is your final secret?" Elias, now an old man with kind eyes, smiled. He picked up a simple block of wood and began to sculpt. His hands moved with a gentle ease, without a hint of effort, like a flowing river. He spoke to the young craftsman. "There comes a time when you will stop trying to breathe life into the wood. You will realize that you are life, and your hands are simply a channel for that life to express itself. Your actions become natural expressions, no longer techniques." Elias continued, "I do not walk in certainty to gain confidence for my sculpting. I walk that way because I am confidence. I do not speak from fullness about my work to attract abundance. I speak that way because I am abundance. You see, I no longer look for beauty in the wood. I found that beauty in myself, and the wood is merely the mirror that reflects it. You are the source of all you have ever sought." The young craftsman finally understood. The final stage is not a new technique, but a complete collapse of the search itself. Abundance, love, health, and peace are not things out there to be won, but aspects of one's true being waiting to be embodied. When a person truly understands this, they stop seeking. They begin to shine, and the world, with unerring loyalty, will bring everything that corresponds to that light. The practice of being living as a declaration. This is no longer an exercise, but a way of life. This is the final shift from doing to being. The morning declaration upon waking. Instead of asking or wishing, begin your day with a simple, powerful declaration of who you are. Say silently to yourself, "Today I am," and fill in the state you choose to embody, e.g., today I am peace. Today I am limitless creativity. The compass of choice. Throughout the day, whenever you face a situation or an emotional reaction, ask yourself the fundamental question: does this action, this word, this feeling come from the position of cause or effect? This question will instantly return you to the position of the master. Are you reacting to the mirror, or are you being the image you wish to reflect? Action as overflow. Allow your actions to flow naturally from your state of amness. Do not act as a technique to get something. If you are confidence, you will naturally speak and act with confidence. If you are kindness, kind gestures will emerge without effort. The end of seeking gently and regularly. Remind yourself, all that I seek is already here within me, waiting to be expressed. This statement gradually dissolves the ingrained habit of looking for approval, love, or security from the outside world. It is the final surrender, the resting in your own power. When you live from this place, life is no longer a struggle. It becomes a dance. You are no longer the dancer trying to mimic the music. You are the music itself, of course. As the final piece of this work, the epilogue serves to distill the entire journey into its most essential, powerful truth. I will translate it to be both a grand philosophical summation and an intimate, heartfelt conclusion, leaving the reader with the unforgettable and empowering image of the lighthouse. Epilogue: The Lighthouse. The journey we have taken together from the workshop of the artisan Elias to the garden of Queen Seraphina was not a journey to learn how to change the world. It was a journey to remember a forgotten truth. The world never needed to be changed. It was simply waiting to faithfully reflect the person you choose to become. The great canvas of reality is already painted. The tapestry of life is already woven with an infinite variety of patterns and possibilities. Every reality you can possibly imagine, abundance, joy, peace, love, already exists, vibrating in the field of infinite potential, like unplayed music in a silent room. Therefore, understand this as the ultimate truth. Creation is finished. You do not create, you simply select. You are not a builder trying to make something from nothing. You are a tuner of frequencies selecting a piece of music to play from an infinite, pre-existing symphony. You do not construct reality. You call it into being by becoming a vibrational match to its frequency. When this truth sinks into every cell of your being, all effort and struggle cease. You realize that every technique, every ritual, every rehearsal was merely the fingers learning to glide across the keys. But when you become the music itself, you no longer need the fingers. Your only prayer is your state of being. When you understand this completely, all that remains is fusion embodiment and the unshakable faith that it is all already done. So stop chasing the ships. Become the lighthouse. For years, perhaps you have grown weary chasing the ships of your dreams across the vast ocean, hoping to one day catch them. Now is the time to stop. Stand firm on your own ground at the center of your being and simply shine. A lighthouse does not scream, does not chase, does not beg the ships to notice it. It simply embodies light, and by its very nature, it becomes an anchor, a guide, a promise of a safe harbor. You no longer wait for a sign, you become the sign. You don't seek miracles, you walk as one. Your power lies not in the pursuit, but in the quiet authority of the light you emit. You command life by fusion, not by force. Reality does not obey the demands of the ego. It bows to the vibration you have dared to become. This is authority born from a heart that is merged with truth, not from a will that is trying to control. When you are the lighthouse, you do not order the sea to be calm. Your steadfastness makes even the greatest waves seem small. And then, At the pinnacle of this understanding, all distinctions dissolve. The final union. You are the creative trinity. There is no longer a separation between the creator, the act of creation, and the thing created. You are the cause, the stream of pure consciousness, the source of all things. You are the prayer, the state of being, the vibrational frequency you choose to embody. And you are the reality, the perfect reflection in the mirror of the world. All have merged into one within your very being. The journey of discovering the laws has ended. Now the journey of living them truly begins. Welcome, Creator. Welcome home to yourself.